Hi folks, very dark today. Filming this in a darkened room. Anyway, dark material incoming. So, number 28. Finding out the number right at least on this Richard Lehman ranking. I've decided to put a bit of a controversial one here. Um, it's his 1995 epic Quake, sometimes listed as the Quake. Um, this one's an odd one because, in terms of page count, this is Richard Lehman's biggest book, 567 pages. In terms of word count, there are two other books he wrote that I haven't reviewed on this yet that I would say exceed the length of this, simply because this has big margins and less words per page than they do. But it's still a big book. It's a hefty book for Lehman. And around the mid 90s, he was really putting out big books, writing a lot of epic stuff. Possibly a bit needlessly so. Lehman didn't really need to write 500-page plus books, but he did. He wrote quite a few of them. And this is the longest in terms of page count. Now, this is about a quake that hits San Francisco, and we have three different groups of characters who are all doing different things. There's a few kids who initially are taking a driving lesson together, despite the fact they don't know each other, and they are flung into this scenario where they've got to survive the streets and get back home. There is the father of one of those kids and the husband of another character I haven't mentioned yet, who, along with the help of a very irritating woman and a young girl, who's trying to get back home. And then we have the main heroine of the piece, who's trapped in her bathroom with a horrendous Lehman character who's trying to find his way to her to do again the sort of things that Lehman villains do in horrific fashion, really. And we have a lot of scenes of chaos and mayhem and the streets being dismantled and running amok. In terms of setting, I think this book would have been better, firstly, if it was a lot shorter, because it is very, very padded, but more so if it had been more of a quake, because this earthquake that's described, yeah, it's bad, but it's not an apocalyptic event. But the biggest issue I have with this book is how it is depicted as an apocalyptic event, because the entire book takes place over the course of a day or two, and we have some of the most unbelievable depictions of carnage that I think Lehman's ever wrote about in such a short fashion of time. You've got mayhem, looting, rioting, which I guess could happen within a few hours, but you've also got like maniacs out there murdering people and butchering people. There's people being skinned alive and scalped, and it's almost as if, and every single person on the streets is a maniac. It's almost as if what Lehman is basically saying here is that San Francisco was inhabited in the mid-90s by delusional murderers, and as soon as something happens in which people are trapped or rendered helpless, the maniacs will come out, because there's scenes of carnage happening here that is just, you couldn't imagine this happening after weeks of shutdown, yet alone within the space of a day. But it's what happens. You have to really suspend disbelief. And I read this with the understanding that this was not taking place over the course of a day, but had been taking place over the course of months within within the worst region of life on Earth. Basically, that's how it makes more sense to me as a reader. And in doing so, I kind of could hold back more on the disbelief part of the book. The three groups of characters are all a little bit irritating, to be honest. Most noticeably, you've got the husband character who's trying to get back to his wife and daughter, who, there's a bit in it in which he almost starts to develop feelings for this kid, not as if she's his own kid, but as if she's like a relationship sort of potential. It's very, very odd. It's incredibly creepy. I don't think it's meant to be, but it comes across as really icky and weird that this guy's kind of has romantic feelings for like this 12-year-old girl. We also have, I mean, the main villain of the piece is a guy called Stanley, and he's a very nasty piece of work. I actually quite like the fact that he's a very focused, really evil guy who doesn't really care much about anything else. Those scenes are quite icky and dark, but they don't fill up most of the book. I think that you've got about 300 pages of novel here and about 267 pages of padding, which is a bit of a shame, really. But it's kind of the biggest issues with it are the scenario itself, in terms of it doesn't make really any logical sense. The characters, none of them are particularly likable. The most interesting character is the villain, and it's just really padded out and stuff. But at the same time, I kind of enjoyed it for what it was. I know that some people hate this book, and there are other people that absolutely love it. For me, it's a bit of a mishmash. It's not a bad book, but it's certainly not a good one. It's 200 odd pages too long. It could do with nicer characters to actually root for. The scene makes no sense considering how short a time span this is all taking place over. And a lot of the book is quite dull. There's huge chunks of just boring conversations and nothing really happening. But when things do happen, it's got some decent action. Like I say, Stanley's a memorable villain, and his single-minded determination to get to, I think the woman's name's Sheila, and do horrible things to her does keep you reading, because you kind of don't want anything bad to happen, and you're trying to work out, is she going to come out of this alive? And Stanley's quite an awful human being. He's a nasty character. And there are some crazy scenes of the usual layman mayhem in this book. So it's not an awful read. I think some people have been very harsh on it, but some people love it a lot more than I do. I just think it's very long and padded, and could really have been tightened up. If this book was 200 pages shorter and we had better protagonists, and it was taking place over a period of months rather than a day or two, it probably would have charted higher up. But as it is, Quake is at number 28. It's quite padded. It's a bit long-winded, but again, it's an okay sort of book, which is why it's here.